Diomande snubs Liverpool, then PSG for Mourinho's Madrid. Meanwhile, Arsenal are going all out for Vini Jr. Italy hire Pirlo, or did they? Meanwhile, Klopp starts his Germany tenure by threatening to quit, and this Champions League club is banning headers at youth level. This is DMAC Daily. Man, I take less than a week off and the football world goes into overdrive. My GOAT, Garnacho, has left Chelsea. As you can tell, I'm clearly devastated. Italy, who were linked with the likes of Guardiola and Ancelotti, ended up with Pirlo, the greatest keeper to ever do it. Vozinha gets his big career move at 40. Oh, and Fabrizio Romano is beefing with his German equivalent, Florian Plettenberg. You gotta love the off-season, am I right? Anyways, we start the week with probably the most pressing story of the last 24 hours, the future pertaining to a certain wunderkind in RB Leipzig and Côte d'Ivoire's Yan Diomande. Now, we all know about his emphatic rise from high school soccer in Florida to debuting a couple months later at the Bernabeu, then taking the Bundesliga by storm and delivering some pretty exciting performances at this year's World Cup, which is why his value has risen in excess of 100 million euros in the space of a year. Because remember, this time last year, Leipzig poached him from relegated Leganes for 20 million euros. Within a couple months of possessing Diomande, Leipzig's internal hierarchy were already licking their lips at the prospect of a future sale in excess of 9 digits. Leipzig have always been a selling club, but with Diomande specifically, they anticipated a record future sale. And early in the 2026 transfer window, two European giants came to the equation in Liverpool and PSG. Now, Liverpool were the early frontrunners to Diamande's signature. It made perfect sense too, a young, long-term replacement for Mo Salah. They had a bid launched in that 100 million euro range, but RB Leipzig basically said, nah, that's not gonna do it. We're demanding 130 mil, to which the Reds then pulled out of negotiations, opting for Victor Munoz instead. Much to the delight of PSG, a club that seemed like another logical fit. Diomande was apparently a PSG fan growing up, considering they just won the UCL, and the fact that Lee Kang-in, Gonzalo Ramos, Kolo Muani were all departing alongside Barcola, who is looking for an exit. Diamande's arrival made sense. However, this expected deal kind of stagnated. Leipzig were holding firm on their 130 mil price tag, which may have seemed crazy, but considering the fees of Anderson and Rodgers in recent weeks, they also wanted a mammoth payday. I was expecting him to then stick around at Leipzig, as PSG confirmed they'd withdrawn from the race, citing, quote, transfer fee and salary demands were completely disproportionate and distortive, and PSG will not break its principles of rational financial management and squad balance. Side note, that quote is objectively hilarious to me. We got a state-run club that spent 2.5 billion euros in 15 years talking about rational spending. So yeah, au revoir PSG. But then, out of nowhere, Real Madrid entered the conversation, and within 2 days, we got a here we go from Fabrizio Romano. Now, before we analyze this actual transfer, we got to get the facts straight here, because the reporting of this deal isn't fully corroborated at this stage. As of recording, Fabrizio has essentially given the green light, whereas Ornstein hasn't confirmed it as of yet, suggesting that Madrid are expected to sign him, that a second bid in the region of 120 mil is set to be rejected, but that an agreement is likely soon, which then caused a bit of a catfight on Twitter, as Florian Plettenberg, a German Sky correspondent, also rejected the idea that a deal was done, causing Fabrizio to reply to another user with a not so subtle dig at Plettenberg, to which he responds, and Fabrizio then chirps back again. And look, I'm no huge fan of Plettenberg. He gets a lot of reporting wrong, but man, Fabrizio is a nasty guy. I mean, he accused a journalist of manufacturing a story that was never actually reported on, by the way, before admitting that he's now crossing the line and threatening to leak DMs. This is why I frequently criticize Fabrizio. He's got a real vindictive character behind him, but drama aside, that's where we're at right now. I'm going to side with everyone's fave, Ornstein, for now, in that it's not 100% done, but damn near close, and that Diomande is almost certainly headed back to where his pro career officially began, at the Bernabeu. Crazy to think that one full season of top flight football later, and he's off for 120 to 130 mil. If it is the latter figure, that'll be Madrid's all-time record fee, eclipsing Bellingham's 127 million euro package. So obviously the money is absurd, but I actually still think this is a good transfer if it does come off. I know a lot of people have their doubts about Diamande's credentials, that he's perhaps overrated, that his ceiling is limited. For me, I just think that at every stage of his career, every new height, he's looked the real deal. And so I'm personally confident he can live up to the hype at the very top level. After all, this is a kid with public Ballon d'Or ambitions. Now, granted, I remember Mykhailo Mudryk also talking about his intentions to become the world's best one day. Hasn't quite worked out for him yet, but Diomande excites me nonetheless. More importantly, I actually think his profile is sorely missing at Madrid too. It seemed like they were gunning on Elise to be that right-wing solution, but Bayern were unwilling to sell, so they just opted for Bundesliga's next best thing, a more explosive solution. It'll be interesting to see how Diomande adjusts his game against those low-block La Liga defenses. I know he's played in Spain previously, but Leganés is a very different team to Real Madrid. Perhaps more of a deep dive will be required as to what Diamande's role in that starting 11 would look like, but until an actual deal is complete, we'll leave it there. Staying on the topic of Real Madrid though, and Vini Jr. to Arsenal. Wow, that's a headline right there. I mean, at face value, it seems almost out of this world that Arsenal could lure one of Madrid's biggest stars coming into their prime off the back of an impressive World Cup campaign. It doesn't usually work that way. Historically, it's always been the exact opposite. But due to the complex circumstances surrounding Vini Jr. in regards to his contract situation, in regards to the player power dynamics within Madrid, and also the Mourinho factor too, I actually don't think this is a far-fetched pursuit. Now, don't get me wrong, it seems rather unlikely, and the initial bombshell reporting from Ornstein was that Arsenal are exploring a move for Vini Jr. If you search Ornstein's Twitter history with the word exploring, you'll find a lot of transfers that didn't end up happening, but simultaneously, he doesn't report on these things unless there's legitimate interest. Now, before we view this through the Arsenal lens, we gotta look at this from Madrid's perspective, because here are the facts. Vini Jr.'s current deal expires in June 2027, so he's now entered the final year of his contract. Now, renewal talks have been ongoing for well over a year at this point. Both parties have appeared to be actually keen on extending the contract. The problem is financially motivated. Vini's camp wants to be paid at or very close to the level of the club's highest earner in Kylian Mbappe, in the region of 30 million euros per season. The Brazilians' camp feels as though they've earned this kind of contract, winning multiple UCL titles and being a key player for years. There are reports of a potential compromise from Madrid offering 20 mil guaranteed with 10 mil extra in bonuses, but so far nothing's been agreed. The concern Madrid have here is that if they do reward Vini Jr. with a bumper contract, then Jude Bellingham might start demanding the same treatment. It's a big financial gamble, especially considering that on the pitch post Mbappe's arrival, it's yet to come together. If Madrid were to let one player depart, it'd probably be the Brazilian, because Mbappe's only been at Madrid for 2 years. Now, Vini Jr. hasn't ever spoken out about leaving the club, and he has communicated at length about his desire to stay, but he's not the man in charge here. I also wonder if Mourinho's arrival has possibly changed the dynamic, because let's not forget, back in February, Vini Jr. accused a Benfica player of racial abuse, to which Mourinho, the then Benfica manager at the time, basically blamed Vini Jr. for the entire saga. Now, I'd imagine Mourinho wouldn't want to lose Vini Jr. now that he's back at the Madrid helm, but things like that, alongside the contractual implications, it could open the door for a possible exit. Adding to that, Arsenal, after years of attempting to establish themselves as the dominant force in English football, have finally done it. They won the Premier League. So to sign Vini Jr. would be the ultimate statement of intent moving forward. I think it would be the biggest transfer in their history, in Premier League history. It also makes sense from a positional standpoint, right? Because in every other area of the pitch, Arsenal are more or less elite. The goalkeeping department, the back line, the central midfield is outstanding, especially if they add Guimaraes to the equation. Saka at full fitness is top on the right. Okay, they don't have a Haaland-like player up top, but between Gyökeres and Havertz, at full fitness, you're probably looking at 40 plus goals. The left wing though, that is the one area of the pitch that is sorely lacking. Trossard's now left, and okay, Solis comes in after a top season in Belgium, but look at Arsenal's competition and the money they're spending. If Arsenal want to remain the creme de la creme of English football, Vini Jr is the missing piece. A world-class player in his prime that gives you the creativity and ruthless end product you're currently devoid of. Financially speaking, I don't think it'd be too costly either. Okay, the wages are going to be crazy, but the transfer fee will be probably reduced with 1 year remaining on his contract, considering the lucrative nature of the Premier League. Ultimately, I don't think a deal of this magnitude is beyond Arsenal. I think the biggest hurdle for the Gunners, though, is that Vini Jr doesn't appear keen on actually leaving Madrid, but I rate the ambition. Whether it happens or not, that's the signing that Arsenal need to make. That's how you stay on top long term, because the Prem is so competitive. I mean, just look at Arsenal's North London rivals. They finished 17th and have already spent over £220 million. The British record fee has been eclipsed twice this summer already. You gotta go big or you're going backwards. That's the reality. We switch gears to international news, and the circus of Italian football never seems to end. Put aside the humiliation of the four-time World Cup champions not qualifying for the last 3 straight tournaments. The last 48 hours or so has been an absolute farce. Now, as we know, off the back of their latest international failure, the International Football Federation went for a total rebuild. Obviously, Gattuso was shown the exit door, but before a manager was appointed, Paolo Maldini arrived as technical director and Leonardo came as an advisor. Now, their first task was to find a new manager, and they went all out, reaching out to Brazilian boss Carlo Ancelotti about his potential interest. Now, the Italians swiftly rejected the opportunity, so they then reached out to another legendary manager in Pep Guardiola. That would have been one heck of a scalp, pun absolutely intended, but the ball genius rejected the opportunity in order to take a break from management. So plan C, I guess, and talk about a downgrade, Andrea Pirlo was given the nod. Now, I guess this isn't the most pressing controversy in regards to Pirlo's appointment now, with the betting scandal taking priority. More on that in a sec, but respectfully, we got to address the elephant in the room. Pirlo, for me, is barely an upgrade on Gattuso, because his managerial career has been incredibly underwhelming. He lasted 1 season at Juve, failing to win the Serie A with CR7 at the club before being sacked. He then spent a year in Turkey, returned to Italy with 2nd division side Sampdoria, and was sacked after 1 season, and most recently coached in the United Arab Emirates 2nd tier. So this is the guy who's going to turn it around? Crazy in my eyes, but that's who they ultimately entrusted in. Yet before he's even technically taken over, Pirlo's future is already in danger due to a previous role as a global ambassador for Fonbet, one of Russia's largest sports betting companies, a role that even saw him attend a promotional event in Moscow, which has led to several figures within Italy's own government condemning this potential appointment. Centrist party leader Carlo Calenda said anyone who has promoted Russia since 2022 should not hold a national role of any sort. Senate President Ignazio La Rosa also publicly questioned the appointment, so Italy's new Football Federation president Giovanni Malago is now facing huge pressure, both externally from the Italian government, but also internally. It's being reported that Maldini could abandon the role if Pirlo's appointment is blocked. I mean, this is peak national team chaos. Like, I wouldn't expect anything less. I mean, the sheer incompetence of this federation is nauseating at times. How was a geopolitically problematic sports betting partnership not picked up earlier on in the process? It's just astounding to me, but also so on brand for the FIGC. Speaking of newly appointed managers, and Jurgen Klopp is back in the managerial hot seat, this time taking over Julian Nagelsmann as the manager of Germany's national team, signing a €7 million a year deal till 2030. So we'll almost certainly get to see the iconic manager at the 2028 Euros and 2030 World Cup tournaments. It's a move that will excite German fans, no doubt, having seen the national team go backwards from Euro 2024 to this summer's World Cup. So change was needed. But with Klopp stepping in, he's since made it clear, hey, let me cook or I'm out of here. In his first press conference as manager, he literally threatened to walk out of the job saying, quote, "The day you don't want me anymore, you say so and I'm gone. Without severance pay. If you say tomorrow that he's rubbish, I'm gone." Not just one person, it would have to be more than that. If the DFB says he's rubbish, I'm gone. If you behave badly and don't leave my family in peace, I'm gone. Damn, Klopp. I guess from his perspective, he's got nothing to prove. He's already an accomplished manager, so he doesn't need to spend the entire time defending his decisions or having the media establishment pick him or his family apart, which I do admire in a way, but also, with all due respect, I think it's incredibly unlikely that he won't face media criticism. I don't know the intricacies of the German press, but from what I've heard from Klopp himself, it's brutal. I mean, he publicly lamented the treatment of former boss Nagelsmann and England's manager Tuchel. So with that, I have a feeling it's going to be a pretty chaotic couple of years ahead, although it was interesting to also note that Klopp confirmed that this would be his last managerial role, saying Jurgen Klopp doesn't have a career after the national team. So I don't anticipate a Real Madrid chapter in the future, despite the frequent links. And to close out today's episode, and Serie A side Como have announced one of the boldest youth development changes we've seen in years, introducing strict limits on heading the ball in an effort to better protect children's long-term brain health. Players under the age of 10 will now not head the ball at all in either training or matches, with even throw-ins and corners modified to keep the ball on the ground. Heading is then introduced gradually across the next few age groups using lighter rubber balls and strict limits on repetitions before becoming a carefully managed part of normal football development. Now, on the surface, this might sound like football becoming overly cautious, but the reality is that the scientific evidence surrounding repeated head impacts is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Multiple long-term studies have linked professional footballers to significantly higher rates of dementia and neurodegenerative disease, while recent research has also identified the unique pressure waves generated when a football strikes the head. Former players such as Rafael Varane have become increasingly vocal after experiencing the consequences themselves, and his involvement in shaping Como's new policy gives the initiative considerable credibility. Now, this isn't about trying to ban heading from the game or anything like that. It's just about delaying and better managing when children are exposed to it. Their argument is that young players should first develop technical ability, ball control, and tactical ideas before repeatedly heading a football while their brains are still developing. It's worth noting that this isn't an isolated move either. The United States has restricted heading at youth level since 2015, while the English FA is gradually phasing heading out of matches for children under 12. Como have simply become the first Champions League level club to fully embrace those principles inside a pro academy. Anyways, guys, that's all for today's DMAC Daily. I'm excited to be back. We got a big transfer window in store, so thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you next time.